Nice. All right. Well, thank you. So with me today, I have Miroslav Volařík, who is the owner of Volařík Winery out of Mikulov, Czech Republic. Hi, Miroslav. Thank you for joining us today. So,
South Moravia, you know, not Czech Republic, South Moravia.
Yes, yes. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit about yourself and your winery, just to maybe give people an idea of what makes Volařík special in your mind.
You know, my history is rather complicated, you know, because we were living in a communist system. And, you know, that means my father was farmer. And then he came, you know, to this area in 1945 and started to be winemaker. But after some years, that means I think it was in 60s, you know, these farming activities and winemaking activities had to be stopped. You know, because this system was applied that we can work like private person. That means only state must be only state-owned property. And then that means from this time, we could produce only some certain amount of wine because, you know, this area from which we could get, you know, these grapes was 0.1 hectare. Means this is 10 meters by 100 meters, you know, you can imagine this parcel. That means, yes, small one. And that means this production was about, let's say, 5,000 bottles, something like this. Comparing to previous time, you know, we had 2 hectares in that time, you know, and then suddenly 10,001, you know. That means until 90s, that means the end of this communist system, you know, we could produce only small amount. And another problem was that we didn't have any information, like now, you know, because we couldn't travel. We couldn't ask neighboring country like Austria, please, how you do this, and then how we can do this, you know, that is no information, you know. And then when the system was changed, then borders were opened, that means we could travel. And I started, you know, to visit some, you know, these France, Italy, and German and Austria to see what's going on, you know, because we could ask them, then, you know, the government should give us back this property, you know. But, you know, it took another 10 years. That means we could start, you know, really this private business, I would say, nearly 2000, something like this, you know. That means I started to plant new vineyards, and then I started to think about new winery, you know, how to do it, and so on, you know. And then first production was then 2008.
Okay.
You know, that means you can see big difference, you know, between these 60s and then 2008, you know, there was big difference, you know. And
so
then,
your father was originally the original winemaker, so you were kind of following in his footsteps, and then when you were able to travel and explore, you kind of brought the outside in a little bit?
Because you could check some information, you know, because really, we didn't have any experience, you know, in that field. You know, we were producing some wine, you know, but very, I would say we used very old process, you know, we didn't know anything about, you know, this new technology. And then, of course, this time, you know, after this 90s, I used to study all these possibilities, you know, which we can use here.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. So 2008 rolls around and you produce your first line of wines, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your winery and what you think makes Volařík special from, you know, what you've been doing from 2008 on.
You know, this idea was a little bit changed, you know, because until this 2008, I was involved in another business, you know. I was selling continuous engine system, and we were building hotels. That means my idea was to build this winery just to put this wine to the hotels, you know, to sell to customers.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But then maybe I made mistake that I planted too much, you know, vineyards, you know. That means then we had to increase production.
Too ambitious, too much wine.
Yes.
That's a good problem to have.
Yes, but let's say that I built a new team with maybe you met, you know, Philippe, Mlinek, and you know these people, and they had some special ambitions, you know, to push this winery to the market. And then I think that yes, 2010 we won, you know, this first award, the best winery, you know, in the Czech Republic. That means it was a big success. I was really surprised, you know, because I didn't expect this. So.
It was a good surprise, good surprise. And you've been winning awards really almost every year ever since, in Moravia and out of Moravia, right?
Yes, yes. You know, but you know, the effect was that when we started to plant new vineyards, because we had to, it's called recultivation in our country. I don't know whether it's, that means you have to take off these old plants and you have to put new one. That means it happened 2004. That means, you know, then when we started to produce wine, what was 6 years old vineyards, but already with select varieties, you know, selected varieties, you know. And then, you know, we had more and more hectares, you know. It's, you know, there was problem that we had to still increase production every year, you know. Until, you know,
and so how many hectares do you have now?
We have 80 hectares.
Yeah.
You know what does it mean, hectare, yes?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. That is, yes, the 80, but let's say 10 hectares still they are young, they're about 1 year, 2 years. That means the production is from 70 hectares. And, you know, if you calculate that if you want to have a really good quality of wine, that means you have to reduce, you know, quantity of grapes in one plant, you know. And we respect this, and we have about one kilogram from one plant, you know, of one tree. And that means if you calculate, that means 70 by 7,000 kilograms per hectare. That means we have overproduction of the grapes. Yeah. We have to think still, you know, how to increase, you know, this production, how to go to the market, whether the same way or another way, because, you know, for this mark, winery Volařík, I suppose that we reach, I think, the maximum production 300,000 bottles, and then we don't want to go through this level, you know.
Right, right. So that's the maximum. What are you currently producing now on average?
Now we are about 260,000, something like that. This year, for example, this year we have this production.
So you've definitely grown in the last few years. I mean, we know because we were there with the old winery up in the back, and then we were there the last time and we saw your new winery building, which is stunning. It's a beautiful design. So you've definitely been growing year over year the past, I mean, since we've been working together the last 3-4 years, but probably since well before then, right?
Yes, yes. I suppose that, you know, this is not affect only growing, but, you know, the better conditions, you know, hygienic conditions, you know, that means you have space for technology, you have space for people, for the storing of wine. That means it's much more comfortable, you know, this new winery. And of course, this is good, you know, good for the customers. So,
yeah, it is, and it's a beautiful building. Your take on Moravian wine, and how you think it compares to other wine regions in the world, right? Because to your point, even about individual wines, everybody wants to compare something to something they know, right? So how do you describe Moravian wine?
You know, Moravian wine, because I traveled a lot, when we started to talk about the history, that means I traveled through Europe, I visited all Spain, all parts in Spain, France, Italy, everywhere, you know, to compare, you know, these wines. And I would say that our wine is rather different because of this minerality, salinity, and acidity. I don't know whether it will be, you know, for future, because, you know, whether it's changed. You know? That means we have warmer and warmer, you know, years. And really, we had big advantage against, you know, Italy. But I'm talking about white wines, you know, not about red wines. You know?
Right, right.
We have a really big advantage that our white grapes, they will still keep some central level at acidity, you know, and this is very nice. Then you can really compare, you know, this wine, combine this wine with sugar, a little bit sugar, and then acidity, still full extract, you know. That means if you work, you know, with this wine 5 months that you still mix on the yeast. That
Yeah.
means really you have chance to have the same product like in Italy, in France, everywhere.
Yeah.
But still we lost 40 years in this communist system. That means we need some time to reach the same level. But still, I suppose that we have good conditions, special here, because in Czech part, that means around the Mělník, and then this part behind Prague, that means they don't have so good conditions like they have here, South Moravia.
Yeah.
This is big advantage for this wine or winemaking process.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you putting it into words, because you do a much better job than I do. But that's one of the reasons Heidi and I fell in love with the wines of the region, is that minerality and that freshness that comes through in all, even throughout different subregions, right? Everything has a different style in all of your subregions, and depending on the tract of lands, but this minerality that comes through is just really partial to like our personal palates. But I think for the United States, that's one of the reasons why they're becoming increasingly popular, because it is unique. And when I do tastings of, Rhine Riesling, that's Moravian versus an Alsace or something else, people can really taste the difference. Like there's something identifiable about the terroir of Moravia, which gives it the sense of place that people are looking for when they're learning about new regions. So I think that puts it in perspective, I think, just perfectly. So
may I tell you something that, you are completely right, because there is a very important factor, for this region, or for the Czech Republic, let's say that we have to be focused on the good quality, because, this is part where is many tourists from outside.
Yeah.
I don't know what will be after this coronavirus, but I suppose that will be maybe within 1 year the same. That means we have to be original. That means we have to do something which is different from other parts in the world. That means this is very important, even for us, to be proud that we are able to do something what is different, and even to lure people to come here, to this region.
Something that defines you guys compared. Yeah, exactly.
And then I suppose that.
So I think, do you have any kind of like final words or things you want people to remember about Volařík wines?
I don't want to still talk about Volařík wines, but I would say totally about Moravian wine. That okay. I think that we are trying to get from this region not the best wine. That means everywhere if you go, that they say that they have the best wine. That means wine which can be compared with production in the Italy, in France, in everywhere. And then I would say that you can see, results from this international competition, that we send samples, not only in our winery, but in other wineries. And then we have very big success, from this. That means, this process, or this way, how to keep, this quality, how to reach and keep this quality, I think is a good one. That means let's continue.
Well, absolutely. We appreciate you continuing that, because we are obviously self-serving and wanting the success of Moravian wines, because we think we just fell in love with it. And as people get to taste them, they do as well. So I think you're spot on with that. So excellent. Well, thank you, Miroslav.